Hi, I'm Tupper. Life's pretty crazy right now, but still gotta do these things. This is the Wilderness Immersion block by Tanner. It's through Western Washington University ASOC, Associate Students Outdoor Center. It's a 2-week wilderness trip with a certification focused on exploring society and interpersonal relations. It's kind of has the idea of taking people out of society to create their own mindful and critical and society based around critical thought, so that they can re-enter society, really thinking and being intentional with their actions. 3 credits and publicly funded education program housed within WW. The mission statement goes like this. We connect diverging communities through a recreational approach to social justice education that focuses on listening and mediation in a wilderness setting. This certification can be used to build support networks between communities and increase respect in the other communities. This is kind of addressing the need in our society right now, where people are kind of going into echo chambers and not really talking to each other about hard topics, and just stuff like that. And this is kind of taking people into the backcountry so that they're a little bit forced into talking about it, but also give them the tools so that they can have critical thought and debate and have healthy conversations with each other. The values of this organization are, it's a small scale experience, which means that you can really think about your interactions with each other and not just get lost in the shuffle. Someone says society is a huge thing and changing society is kind of impossible, but if changing your small community is definitely probable. So that's a value. We're moving students towards self-actualization. Through the Wilderness Block, we'll be meeting the needs of the students and helping them move forward on Maslow's triangle thing. Then there's another thing is meaning making. The wilderness is very good at making meaning happen, or like spiritually, like meaning making is a pretty big foundational piece of the outdoors. So yeah. Then accepting all viewpoints. This isn't about having echo chambers of social justice workers and stuff like that. We want to encourage diverse perspectives, Republicans, Democrats, Eastern Washingtonians, Western Washingtonians, everyone, to get involved and really start thinking about what they're doing in society. And then it's encouraging peer-to-peer education. This focuses a lot on growing and learning through each other instead of from a professor and stuff like that, which is fine, but peers are cool too. Then creating brave spaces, giving people the space to say their opinion even if they feel like it's not supported, and really think about those opinions, because a lot of times every argument has a logical reasoning in it, and so really thinking about where that logic is and meeting that, recognizing that logic and working with it instead of just disagreeing with someone's opinion. And then celebrating failure is another value, just helping people celebrate being wrong. It's pretty cool. It's really healthy to be wrong and to not be afraid of being wrong. Everyone has wrong opinions, difficult opinions, and if you're always trying to hide those opinions, then eventually that's just going to blow up. And if you're always trying to stay in your circle so your opinions don't get questioned, then eventually it'll break down. Goals. My goals are to equip students with the ability to think critically on social issues. Thinking about that critical thought paper that Randy had us read in management, and applying that to our social behaviors, and then develop skills that allow participants to adapt to new conflicts. We want to allow participants the opportunity to adapt in social realms, especially in mediation and conflict realms. So giving them lots of tools to deal with conflict and mediating disagreements is important. Decrease the aversion to being wrong. We want to celebrate failures, as we said in the last slide, as well as just allowing people to express their opinions even if they're not 100% sure about them, so that we can just have constructive conversations. Creating bridges between diverse communities is a big goal. We want to bridge those divergent communities that I talked about in my mission statement, and then giving support to all participants, even those that we might disagree with their views on. We still want to accept their viewpoints. And then teaching reflective listening is really important. I think it's really helpful to be able to effectively listen to someone and think about what they're saying and communicate effectively. One of the facilities that we will be at is the outdoor center. It's a little bit of a propaganda for them because I stole a lot of their tarps this quarter, and I still haven't folded the tarps that I stole last, so please go to the outdoor center. But it would be based out of this program, and there's some offices that we could use and develop this curriculum with, as well as they already send out a whole bunch of trips, so we could jump on board with that style of thing and send out some more diversity and inclusion style trips. The other facility that we would be working at is Lake Chelan National Recreational Area, which has Lake Chelan, of course, beautiful, deepest lake in the Americas, I think, as well as just beautiful 50-mile long lake that we could kayak up or have a ferry give us up. The Lady of the Lake service is pretty cool, pretty historic in the area. Go up to Stehekin and then hike around that area. Lake Chelan also has Goody Mountain, pretty awesome summit. Probably not going to do it in this recreation service, but looking at it's pretty cool. And then Liberty Bell, also probably not something that we do, but we hike out right next to Liberty Bell, and it's a beautiful rock face in the area. Lake Chelan National Recreational Area has some pretty significant trails. It has an old wagon pass trail that makes its way through these mountains, which is quite helpful for this big of a group, because then our L&T impact won't be as high, and we can stay at Park Creek or Bridge Creek group campgrounds, and those ones are on the wagon pass trail, so pretty heavily impacted through time already, and that is really not going to get reclaimed anytime soon. So that's pretty cool. It's also on the PCT, so that also has a huge impact, and pretty accessible. As it's being on a wagon trail, we can get people in wheelchairs and stuff back there on horses pretty easily, which would be cool. And so yeah, very accessible, also pretty secluded. Not a lot of people make it back into this part of Lake Chelan National Recreation Park area. Not many people even go to the recreation area, so that's pretty cool. Another cool thing about this area is that it's easy to resupply to Stehekin. Just get on the Lady of the Lake, go to Stehekin, and you can hike down to Stehekin from Park Creek or Bridge Creek pretty easily. You also have tons of day hikes in the area. You got McGregor Mountain, you got some views of Goody, and you've got some pretty sick other hikes just going around Buckner and Logan and stuff, which are two pretty awesome peaks in the area. Who are we looking for as a presentation? We want to bring college students at Western of all ability levels into the fold. One thing is it's a neutral pricing scheme, but we're going to have ideally 2 full ride scholarships and 2 half scholarships, so that we can bring different social economic backgrounds into the mix. And then students that we also want to be looking at, students that are looking forward to traveling or working for the quarter, but are finding Western to be annoying with its inability to give give time a quarter off without you having to reapply and all that stuff. So having these at the beginning of the term or at the end of the next term, so that people can just jump in, a few credits, be a part-time student, and actually be able to do what they want to do. The curriculum will be based off human relations, what we talked about in Keith's class, that kind of stuff. Conflict resolution and mediation stuff, which is through Washington Mediation Association. Identity studies, oppression studies, and listening skills, as well as there will be solo time to be reflective. And the delivery will be through experiential learning cycle mostly, and small lecture-like gatherings. The experiential learning cycle will have a lot of front-loading and discussions and debrief questions surrounding it while people go out on their day hikes and other things. The staffing for this organization will have a logistics coordinator to handle resupply, travel, and gear needs. This is going to be a Western student that is task-oriented and a stickler for details. Also want them to be helping get people on board and get scheduled and everything, as well as we want 2 instructors working long hours in the wilderness teaching classes. This is a pretty hard job. You don't really have that much time off. You're off in the middle of nowhere, so definitely need a wilderness first responder at the very least, and then want them to be people oriented and 2 years of experience guiding, as well as graduate students would be ideal because then we could get it accredited easier. And then the last position would be a manager putting together curriculum and dealing with paperwork. Also probably needs to be a graduate student just because of how Western has its outdoor center work. In a higher position you need to have a higher degree, and then putting together and then they would also want to have a woofer so that they know how to deal with the instructors, and 4 years experience so to make sure that the instructors feel liked. Also people oriented. Some community partners that we have: Lake Chelan Recreation Area, of course, for an exchange for having us go through their park. We would help them in any rehabilitation or L&T work that they're trying to do, trail service or anything. Lady of the Lake is the boating service up to Stehekin. It's like a $15 trip up per person, but if we get our participants to eat lunch on the boat, that would be super cool for them because that's how they make the majority of their money. And then Western Washington would be another community partner. In exchange for accrediting our program, we can further their community goals and diversity and inclusion stuff. Funding will be through grants to start it up, and running from the school, talking to people in the school program and getting the ball rolling. Then donations would be for the scholarships because grants are really hard for students to get. There's a lot of paperwork and stuff that are barriers to students, so donations and funds that are outside of public funding can be much more helpful for those scholarships that students need. And then the pricing model is neutral, as I mentioned before. Would need to be hashed out with the university for the exact price to see how much they would be paying per credit and how much the university would cover. Marketing would be mostly flyers and posters, as well as mass emails, the classic things that you see around campus. Some tabling would probably be the best way to go about it. That's the most effective way that I've found to get people onto trips, is by just getting out there in Red Square and talking to people as they walk by. It can be annoying to do, it can be annoying to have done to you, but it's the most effective way to get people on board. As well as we can do some social media, Instagram through the OC and other things, but it's not as required for an education service. Evaluation, the end of course evaluation would be to see what can be improved in the curriculum. So just like a classic, what we do in class, end of course curriculum, and just seeing that kind of stuff, as well as surveys before, after, and a while after, a few months after, based around the goals of the program, finding those quantitative social things, social terms like resilience and hope and stuff, and seeing where our participants end up on that graph over time. Cool.